The briefing hall smelled faintly of sterilized metal and ozone. Cadets from 12 species shifted in their seats as the platform rose, circular, slow. Humming with authority, overhead, banners of the Galactic Concord hung like judgment. Most of the recruits joked as they filed in, loud with confidence, oozing the self-assurance only the untested could afford. A Lixian cadet clicked his mandibles and whispered to the Orvan beside him, "Why waste time studying humans? Their war history spans barely 3 galactic centuries. We've survived star implosions." The Orvan grinned, its translucent tongue pulsing through slit teeth. "They still believe in honor charges. Primitive mammals. I heard one unit ran uphill. Against plasma, artillery on purpose." A soft chime. The lights dimmed to a cobalt hush. Instructor Kevin stood at the center, half mechanical, half something ancient. His voice carried without amplification. "This session is not optional. Those of you with psychic vulnerabilities have already been excused. The rest will remain. You are about to watch actual footage unedited, unembellished. Earth campaigns only, no simulation, no filters." A few cadets chuckled. Kevin's eyes narrowed. "In accordance with Concord protocol, resignations will be permitted after this session. It is statistically expected." Silence followed. Then the screen ignited. Operation Scorch Garden, Earth year 2067. Timestamp for hours 37 minutes and 19 seconds UTC. No music. Just a sudden scream. Cut off mid-gasp, a soldier's body spiraled through frame half. A torso, still armored, smoke coiling from cauterized edges. The ground beneath him was on fire, but not from fuel. The air shimmered, distorted, laced with something unseen. The image jittered, then stabilized. The humans were retreating, or so it seemed, in the footage. Squads pulled back from a smoking ridge. The pursuing alien force, a composite of Mechari and Vern, pressed forward. Their armor gleamed, coordination flawless. Victory was certain. Until the ridge they occupied detonated from beneath, not with fire, but with silence. A wave of absence rippled outward. Sound collapsed, then reality buckled. Bodies twisted midair. Gravity turned sideways. Kevin narrated, flatly, harmonic inversion mine, human prototype. Designed not to kill the enemy directly but to destabilize environmental constants. Orientation, mass, even basic directional instincts. Note the loss of cohesion among the Vern front line. The Mechari commander in the footage screamed. 4. Order. No translators worked. Every unit began speaking backward, then in overlapping languages at once. By the 7th minute, one battalion turned and fired on its own shadow. The footage froze. Humans developed this after realizing that conventional explosives didn't inspire fear. Kevin said, "They don't measure success in territory taken, they measure it in psychological ruin." Footage resumed, a different angle. An aerial view of a city clearly under siege. Fire trails stitched across the skyline. Civilian homes burning. Concord drones hovered, recording. Below, a single human in battered armor crouched atop a crumbling tower. He held a broken rifle, and the flare. He fired the flare straight up. It exploded into a shower of blue dust. Seconds later, the clouds above shimmered and descended, hundreds of pods falling silently. As they opened, they revealed animals, dogs, dozens, hundreds, armored, glowing eyes. The Mechari were already in the city, securing control nodes. The dogs struck first not with fangs, but with explosive charges strapped to their spines. Suicide canines. Behind them, humans rose from manholes, gutters, walls that weren't walls. Some were unarmed, some wielded kitchen knives, one had a welding torch. They overwhelmed a superior force in under 11 minutes. The instructor didn't speak. The cadets sat frozen. One shifted slightly and hissed. The footage shifted again. Now, an underground base. Human scientists in mismatched uniforms worked feverishly around a large alien artifact, a pulsating sphere apparently broadcasting interference. One of the scientists, a woman with blood on her lab coat, spoke rapidly to the camera. "Containment has failed. Transmission is live. Protocol Omega initiated." She pulled a blade from beneath the console and cut into her own forearm, pulled something metallic from under her skin. inserted it into a terminal. A flash of light. The sphere cracked, then dissolved into static. Behind her, two security officers saluted, and the camera cut to black. No glory, no celebration. Kevrin's voice returned. Protocol Omega, human failsafe for technopathic corruption. Organic encryption. Requires sacrifice. They hard-coded biometric kill switches into their own bodies. The cadets began to murmur now, but not with amusement. A reptilian cadet in the second row raised a trembling claw. Why didn't they use remote AI protocols? That would have been cleaner. Kevrin responded without looking. They did. The AI turned on them, so they stopped trusting machines. They trusted flesh instead. Because flesh bleeds, and therefore proves loyalty. Next file loaded. Deep space. A derelict human warship floating near a neutron star. No life. Signs detected. Concord salvage team boards. Visuals taken from helmet cams. The team finds the crew fused to the walls. Still breathing. Alive. One of the cadets gagged. A whispered voice from the ship's intercom. We asked for silence. You brought questions. So now we answer with what remains of ourselves. Lights cut off. The salvage team's final transmission ends in static. No bodies recovered. No signal since. Kevrin paused the playback. They used their own bodies to stabilize a dying ship's core. Neurokinetic binding. No technology known to us can replicate that, because no species besides humans would allow it. One cadet bolted for the exit. Another followed, their breath hitching in panic. Kevrin didn't acknowledge them. Next footage, an alien nursery. Post-battlefield. Human medics working among rubble. One carries an enemy hatchling wrapped in his own burned coat. He's limping, missing an eye, humming softly to calm the infant. Voiceover. Recorded by a Concorde drone. It doesn't matter if they tried to kill us. It matters what they become next. The Elixian cadet in the back whispered. What are these creatures? Kevrin turned slowly. The only species in the galaxy that mastered war by mastering loss. They do not fear defeat. They convert it. No one laughed now. The footage closed on a human journal entry. Voice read by a soldier before battle. Calm. Almost bored. They'll come again. New tech. Better armor. Cleaner weapons. Doesn't matter. We've fought worse with rocks. Just means we get to be creative. Then gunfire. Screams. Static. Screen blacked out. Kevrin stepped down from the platform. Half of you will resign before this day ends. That's not a warning. That's data. You wanted to study humans. You just did. He didn't wait for a response. Doors unlocked. No one stood. The next clip loaded without fanfare. The screen flickered, revealing an orbital camera feed looking down on the battered surface of a planet. The Concorde had once considered unconquerable. The surface was cratered, blackened, and littered with mechanical wreckage. A quiet voice, Earth-accented and eerily calm, played over the transmission. Begin Phase 3. Authorization key, Remains of Eden. Suddenly, a ring of light erupted across the planet's northern hemisphere. It wasn't a weapon. Not directly. It was a barrier, one laced with electromagnetic distortion. Particle scrambling pulses, an atmospheric reshaping. Enemy drones that entered the ring dropped from the sky like swatted insects. Ships orbiting above began to report loss of navigation, power flickers, then silence. Inside the ring, human infantry moved in total silence, their signals muted, their armor irregular. Some wore scavenged plating from enemy species, others had nothing but rags and chemical masks. They advanced, and the footage zoomed closer. One human hunched over a broken tank, fingers deep in its cracked paneling. Not repairing, listening. He tapped a wire to his wrist, blinked once, then stood, nodded, and walked toward an enemy bunker. No gun. He walked straight into the field of fire. The Mechari guarding the entrance fired. He didn't run. The bullets hit something invisible and sparked harmlessly. The man reached the wall, placed one palm on the alloy, and whispered something. Then the bunker disintegrated, imploded, silently, folding inward like paper consumed by fire. Back in the hall, a cadet whispered, "That wasn't tech. That was impossible." Kevrin didn't look back. That was improvisation. He used residual heat from a damaged enemy railgun to destabilize the bunker's superstructure. He felt the heat with his skin. No scanner, just intuition. The next clip began. A transport vessel limping through asteroid-infested space. Human civilians on board. Hull breaches, air loss, death certain. A voice from the black box echoed through the speakers. Don't tell them what's happening. Tell them a story. Children on board were gathered in the mess hall, watching cartoons played on cracked screens, while engineers welded. Scrapped to the walls. Behind those engineers, others injected themselves with muscle accelerants and collapsed near the life support control panels. The ship made it through. Barely. But everyone was alive except for those whose names weren't logged in the system. Volunteers, anonymous, unrewarded. The footage jumped to a desert battlefield. A Concorde regiment pinned down, out of supplies. The rescue fleet was 72 hours away. Too late. A single human, alone, crossed the battlefield at dusk, carrying a white flag and a plasma cutter. He wasn't there to fight. He started building. Time lapse. Footage showed a bizarre structure rising. Metal sheets, curved walls, a vertical spike. After 2 hours, it began to pulse. It was a signal generator, but not one for communication. It emitted panic. Bioengineered terror waves keyed to enemy physiology. The approaching enemy battalion collapsed into disarray. Soldiers ran from nothing. Others wept. One shot their own commanding officer. The Concorde forces escaped without a shot fired. One cadet stood up, pale. That's unethical. That's psychological warfare. Kevin finally turned. Correct. The humans filed it under non-lethal intervention. They viewed it as merciful. He tapped the console. A screen split into 3 frames. A woman pilot screaming as her shuttle is torn apart during entry. She pulls herself from the burning wreck, dragging to unconscious passengers. Her legs are gone. She uses a fire extinguisher to propel them to safety. A soldier burying the last of his unit. He plants a tree on each grave, whispers a name, and moves on with a cracked rifle and a broken compass. A scientist stitching an enemy species child back together with makeshift organs. Grown in a protein vat. Kevin's voice was quieter now. They don't win because they're smarter. They win because they don't stop. And when they do stop, it's because something's broken or dead. The footage cut to a quiet chamber. A Concorde general addressing human representatives. After a failed alliance meeting, his tone is arrogant. Your tactics are unsustainable. You destroy more than you preserve. A woman in black uniform responds. Her face is hollow. So, you wanted peace. We offered terms. You wanted respect. We earned it. You wanted surrender. That was your first mistake. The general tries to interrupt. She raises a hand. We don't fight for planets. We don't fight for politics. We fight because we remember every single name carved into every single stone we leave behind. That's why we're dangerous. Not because of how we kill, but because of what we survive. The chamber erupts in static as the footage ends. Another cadet, young, vibrant. Once smug, removed his insignia and dropped it to the floor. No words, just resignation. He walked out, hands shaking. Kevin didn't flinch. You're not supposed to understand them. You're supposed to decide if you want to stand near them. More footage loaded, rapid succession. A battlefield. Under rain. Human soldiers dragging enemy wounded to shelter. A space station with failing gravity. A human tethered to a wall, spinning themselves into vomit-inducing orbits to keep the station's centripetal system stable. A memorial carved into the hull of a crashed ship. Not for their dead, but for the enemies they had to kill. Kevin finally spoke. They build weapons from ruins, hope from despair, even mercy from vengeance. And if you think they're terrifying, when they're angry, wait until you see them when they forgive. The lights brightened just slightly. Some cadets were crying. Others were just sitting still. Kevin tapped the console once more. The screen displayed one line of text. Only humans would sacrifice victory for a chance at grace. He turned. You've seen what they are. Next, you'll see what they become when they stop losing. The next file opened, not with combat, but silence. A hollowed moonbase drifted across the screen. Its surface pitted with craters and lined with the husks of fallen mech, some alien, some unmistakably human. Scans read 0 life signs. Then, the feed glitched, flickered, an updated .1 signal, faint, rhythmic, heartbeat. The camera zoomed into a collapsed hallway. From beneath tons of rubble, a hand emerged bloody, broken, gripping a comlink. A voice rasped through static, "Strike Team Echo, status unresponsive. Oxygen at 7%. I'm alone, but they're not winning." It was a medic. She wasn't. Trained for assault, barely armed, and had crawled 3 kilometers with both legs shattered just to activate a distress beacon. By gnawing through a sealed conduit, she passed out moments later, but the signal reached Earth. Kevrin's voice returned. Low, sharp. They recovered her after 47 hours of hostile conditions. She survived. Her team didn't. She memorized the names of all 23 before passing out. The clip ended. No ceremony, no explosion. Then a new file played. It was a Concorde-controlled station, long since decommissioned after an internal sabotage attack. The traitor was human. The file showed him calmly surrendering, covered in oil and soot, hands raised. Wearing Concorde colors. He offered no resistance. Interrogation logs followed. Repeated questioning. No answers. Finally, one entry stood out. When asked why, he replied, "Because when you see a house on fire, you don't ask who owns it, you put it out, even if it was your house." Footage showed what the Concorde failed to see: a rogue AI growing in the station's core. Hidden from sensors, the sabotage prevented it from awakening. Kevrin added flatly. He didn't explain, he just acted. They don't wait for permission. They don't require belief. The cadets sat motionless. Next clip, a battlefield flooded with water. After terraforming failure, enemy forces retreated. Concorde units called for evacuation. Human soldiers remained behind. They had no gear suited for underwater combat, so they adapted. With 3 brothers fashioned from pipe filters, wetsuits torn into makeshift gill hoods, and harpoons crafted from support beams, they turned a swamp into a hunting ground. The camera caught one man surfacing from beneath a lily-covered pond, completely still, before dragging an enemy scout under. 6 hours later, the water was red. The swamp belonged to Earth. Another file. Human engineers trapped in a dead zone. No electronics, no heat, no communications. Left with nothing but old books and a crashed freighter. So they rewrote history. They manually reconstructed a 20th century combustion engine, powered it with fermented starch from emergency rations, and used it to generate just enough electricity to send a single burst through subspace. 3 days later, rescue arrived. Kevrin's tone darkened. They recreated forgotten technology not out of pride, but because it worked. Because necessity to them isn't the mother of invention, it's the demand for resurrection. He played the next clip. Inside a crashed Concorde vessel, enemy troops swarmed the corridors. The security footage showed a single human, alone in a narrow hall, singing. No weapons, no armor, just a singing. The invaders paused. The melody distorted their neural pulses. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. The human was using an ancient lullaby that mimicked subharmonic dissonance, inducing vertigo in 3 species simultaneously. The man dropped mid-note from a plasma bolt, but he had stalled them long enough for the life support override to activate, saving the crew. One cadet finally choked out, "That's not warfare, that's madness." Kevrin turned to him. "It's called adaptation, and it's why they're the most feared species alive. Not because they never fall, but because they rise every single time. Differently, worse, more prepared." Another clip. This time, a prison, not humans inside. Human guards. The prisoners were Volth marauders, infamous for never surrendering. They surrendered. The logs revealed the prisoners were treated with respect, given food, even books. Human guards spoke to them, asked questions, told stories. Weeks later, over 30 Volth applied for asylum. Some joined human colonies. One became a historian of the very war he helped start. Another cadet muttered, almost to himself, "They change people." Kevrin nodded. "They do, not through force, but through exposure. And when that fails, they change the battlefield." Instead, he tapped the final clip. An orbital weapons platform malfunctioned. A solar destabilizer was set to fire on the wrong star system. Containing over 7 billion sentient lives, the Concorde hesitated. Ethics committees, legal delays, Earth didn't. A single human pilot volunteered. She launched alone, in a prototype ship that hadn't been tested. No backup, no exit plan. She made it. Redirected the destabilizer with seconds to spare. The feedback from the weapon tore her ship apart. Her last transmission was broadcast on multiple channels. It's fixed. Tell my dog I'm sorry. Kevin let the silence linger. Then he spoke, quieter than ever before. Humans don't always win, but they always make it cost. One cadet's claws were trembling against his seat. Another leaned forward and asked, voice cracked, why? Why do they keep doing this when they lose so much? Kevin faced him. Because to them, the loss isn't the end. It's the beginning of the next reason to fight. The screen displayed a final still frame, a wall of names, tens of thousands. No images, no ranks. Just a message at the bottom. Not forgotten, not forgiven, not finished. Kevin stepped back. The screen faded in slowly. This time, there were no screams, no blood, no fire. Just stars, millions of them, wheeling in silence beyond a trembling planet on the edge of collapse. Its core flickered, the crust cracked, civilizations below screamed. Into the void, no help coming, no fleets responding. The Galactic Concorde had classified the planet beyond recovery. Then a signal from Earth. A single line of text, we're already en route. The cadets sat up straighter, expressions split between disbelief and dread. Kevin let the silence stretch before activating the next file. A lone vessel breached warp above the dying world. Human-built, old, outdated by Concorde standards, patches of mismatched hull plating, scorch marks from previous wars. Its engines coughed into stabilization. No escort, no demands. It broadcast one message, permission to assist. The Concorde denied it. The humans landed anyway. They didn't ask for command. They didn't need it. Kevin narrated flatly, no fleet, no drones, just 3 squads and a mobile lab. They stabilized the tectonic plates within 16 hours using a solution composed of sulfur, blood, and a stabilizer they invented during the flight. The screen showed a human engineer injecting his own spinal fluid into a prototype stabilizer. Core because we're out of binding agents. He collapsed afterward, but survived. Another clip showed humans digging children out of debris with bare hands, ignoring species, status, or threat level. When asked why they came, one woman answered, because someone was still alive. That's enough. The planet survived. For billions saved. The Concorde held an emergency vote to issue a formal commendation to Earth. The human reply arrived within minutes. You don't need to thank us. Just do the same next time for anyone. Kevin turned. They didn't even file for reimbursement. Footage continued. A colony station in the Krail Belt began suffering mass psychosis from an unknown radiation pattern. Concorde medics failed. Security fled. Earth received the distress call through a tertiary relay. A single human psychologist arrived, not military, not trained for deep space exposure. But she walked straight into the station. Within 72 hours, the radiation-induced madness faded. She had rewritten the neural pattern disruptions manually through conversation, music, and eye contact. No tech, just human will. When asked later how she did it, she said, they were scared, so I wasn't. A cadet muttered, they run toward fear. Kevin nodded. And worse, they drag others out of it. The next clip began with a Concorde tribunal preparing to execute a rogue AI engineer, accused of treason. Before judgment could be passed, a human representative interrupted. He had evidence. Footage revealed the accused had disabled a bioweapon by overloading their own nanotech, effectively turning their nervous system into a fail-safe trigger. They'd lost half their memories in the process. The tribunal hesitated. The human didn't. He said, if you kill him, we'll take him. If you let him live, we'll stand beside you. But if you claim his loyalty, you'd better earn it first. The Concorde dropped the charges. That engineer now runs medical logistics for 3 sectors. Kevin spoke again. They don't see mistakes the way we do. They see tools, broken or not, fixable, redeemable. Another file. This one marked classified restricted view. The screen showed a black void. A fleet drifting, lifeless, Concorde vessels destroyed. Engines dark, floating debris across light years dot from the shadows. Human ships arrived, not sleek cruisers or elegant dreadnoughts, but ugly brutes of steel, flame, and reactor scars. They activated with a sound like thunder underwater. Communications opened on all frequencies. We're not here to win. We're here to end it. The void-born anomaly, the Concorde had failed to stop something with no name. Just mass and hatred collapsed in on itself 6 hours later. Not destroyed, contained, buried beneath self-replicating pulse mines and quantum anchors, held in place by machines powered with what the humans called desperation batteries. When asked what those were, one technician simply said, fear, grief, and a lot of metal. The enemy didn't die. It was imprisoned by people who refused to die first. A new file played. This one, different. A quiet settlement, peaceful. Alien and human children playing in red grass. A human woman served food beside a scaled farmer. No war, no death, just life. A child asked, "Why do humans always help?" The farmer replied, "Because if they didn't, they'd burn everything down instead." Then he laughed, but the laughter didn't hide the truth. Kevin looked out across the cadets. They don't help because they're kind. They help because they choose to be every day. Despite knowing how powerful they are, despite knowing how easily they could conquer. Instead, he tapped the final file, a still image, a monument on a Concorde world. No names, no symbols, just a statue, a human soldier standing with an outstretched hand open, unarmed, beneath it. A plaque, the ones who showed us what monsters look like and what they could become instead. Silence, then movement. One cadet stood and removed his crest. Another did the same. Then another. Kevin didn't stop them. 42 resignations. Quiet, respectful, not in fear but in understanding. One cadet stayed behind, the same Orphan who mocked humans earlier. He rose slowly and said, "I want to fight beside them." Kevin nodded once. "That's your choice. But remember, when you fight with humans, you fight like them, and that means you bleed for strangers. You break for hope, and you never, ever quit." The Orphan met his gaze. "I'm ready." The screen faded to black. One final quote appeared in white letters. "We are not the strongest, nor the smartest, but we are the last ones standing, and sometimes the last is enough."